No, the concept of like the fourth quarter of life. I'll give you an example of what I mean. He died. That cat right there that you see on your screen, he died when he was 36 years old. So if you're talking about quarters, you want to take 36 and divide it by 4 as a quarter. You'll get 9. You subtract 9 from 36, you'll get 27. So he was in the fourth quarter of his life when he was 27 years old. That's the thing. You won't even know what quarter of life you in really until your life ends. You won't know. Like, all right, okay, it just so happens my grandfather died when he was 68. That's also a multiple of 4. You take 4, divide 68 by 4, you come up with 17. And he died when he was 68. So you take 17 minus 68, you'll come up with 51. My birthday was Wednesday. I turned 51. So if I live to be 68 years old, I'm in the fourth quarter of life. I had up until that point I was aware of the concept of being in the fourth quarter of life because I went to this civic board meeting and it was right before the election, and some of the ideals I had. That's another reason why I'm not sharing my opinion. I was talking about the election, talking about how we need to get off the Democratic plantation and reparations and all that stuff. And you could see them old people just getting mad. They was just stewing. And I was like, and I was telling somebody the story. And it was like, that's because, no. Well, no, fourth quarter of life. No, somebody was telling me that they were at a meeting. It was a rehab meeting. And this guy was like 35 years old and he still had enough life left to where now he's clean. He got a good amount of life left to live. And he said that the older people would be jealous of him. And that's when yeah, right, that's what it was. He said because they were in the fourth quarter of their life. And then I started looking at it from the perspective of what I experienced at the civic meeting. Because I went to the civic meeting after I had this conversation with the dude about the being in the rehab, and the older people were jealous of them because they were already in the fourth quarter of their lives, and they had not as much clean life to live because the other boy was 35 years old. That's what I'm getting at. So I'm for sure. No, now somebody like my mother's 75. If she lives to be 100, she's definitely in the fourth quarter of her life, and I don't like to really even think about that. Look, if you lived 100, she's 75. That is exactly 25% of your life. So you're in the last quarter, 25, 25, 25, 25. So it's 25, 50, 75, 100. So if she lives to be 100, she's already 75. You take what? 100 4 goes into 100. Wait. You know what trust and believe. I'm high right now, but trust and believe. My mom's in the fourth quarter of her life. Just all right. Here's another perception. I remember Empire Strikes Back came out in 1980. Return of the Jedi came out in 1983. Those 3 years was the longest 3 years of my life because that was 1/3 of my life, 33% of my life. Now, that's the concept. Think of it. 1 year, when you're 5 years old, I said this before, I'm sure. When you're 5 years old, 1 year is 1/5 of your life. That's 20%. Now, a year is more or less than 1/50 of my life. That's a lot less than 20%. So, but get in mind that most of us over the age of 50 are in the fourth quarter of our lives when I thought it was the third quarter. Nah. Life's short. Ask Bob Marley.